Hello young people and those who are young at heart. I'm Jill, I'm the youth worker with Inverclyde Youth for Christ, and today I wanted to pop on and talk to you about uncertainty. There's been a lot of it going around recently. We've all had to deal with some pretty big changes over the last 5 months, and I'm sure some of you have maybe had to deal with changes even in the last 5 weeks. And for some of you, that may have been preparing to go back to school after a really long time off. How do you deal with uncertainty? Do you cling to the past, refusing to change, not moving on with the times? Or are you looking forward to something different? Excited when things change? Looking forward to the fact that you don't know what's coming next? No matter how you look at it, uncertainty and changes affect all of us. I've been through, quite recently, probably one of the biggest changes I'll ever face. In September of last year, I became a mum for the very first time, and I've been off on maternity leave ever since. I returned to work at the beginning of August, and boy, what a change that was. It was really uncertain because not only was I coming back to a job that I hadn't done in a year, but I was coming back to something that, due to the COVID pandemic, didn't look much like the job I'd left. It was so different. The Bible talks a lot about changes and uncertainty. It's a group of people called the Israelites. They were God's chosen people, and they had lived in Egypt for 400 years. But over time, the pharaohs, the leaders of Egypt, had begun to take advantage of them, using them as slave labour. But a time came for change, and God sent his messenger Moses to ask Pharaoh to let the Israelite people go so that they could worship God out in the desert. But Pharaoh said no. He refused. He didn't want to lose his workers. So God sent 10 plagues on Egypt. But God knew it wasn't until the 10th one that Pharaoh's heart would be softened, his mind would be changed, and he would let the Israelite people go. The Israelites didn't know that. They had no idea if or when they would ever get to leave Egypt. After all, if Pharaoh had already said no 9 times, what was it about the 10th was going to change his mind? But God knew, and he gave instructions to the Israelites to prepare a special meal. But he also said this is how you're to eat it, with your cloak tucked into your belt, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in hand. Eat the meal with urgency, for this is the Lord's Passover. God knew this was the night that Pharaoh would change his mind. This was the night the Israelite people would have to be ready to go. And that's exactly what happened. In the middle of the night, Pharaoh called for Moses and his brother Aaron and said, "Go, take your people, take the Israelites and go. Take their flocks, take their sheep, their herds, everything, and go and worship God as you've asked." If you got a phone call in the middle of the night that meant you had to get up and get out of the house as fast as possible, would you be able to do it? Get up, get dressed, get your jacket, your shoes, your phone, your keys, your money, anything else you might need, and get out that door. Personally, I'm not too sure I'd be good at it. Usually because I can't remember where I left my keys. But what if that call meant you had to pack up everything, leave the only home you've ever known, and get out as fast as possible? I'm sure you'd feel pretty unprepared. But this wasn't the case for the Israelites, because remember the instructions that God had given. They were to be ready with their cloaks tucked into their belts, their sandals on their feet, and their staffs in hand. God was preparing them for the move they were about to make. Sometimes we don't feel prepared when life shifts suddenly. Sometimes we don't feel prepared even if we've seen that change coming a mile off. But changes don't surprise God. He sees them coming. He knows what's happening before we do. He prepares us for those changes, just like he did for the Israelites. God knows the exact moment that shift is going to happen, and he wants us to trust him through that process. He sees the other side of the road that we're travelling on, and he wants us to trust that he is preparing us, even if we don't realise it yet.